something that was not supposed to be there in that room. Because the rest of the home was room temperature, like you can feel the heat, the humidity, but this room was just particularly cold.
Okay.
Yeah, and so what happened was, as I stood there, I was just like looking around the room, and the room was pretty dark. And as I was looking around the room, left to right, again, I heard that voice prompt me very gently to say, look above her bed. And so I lifted up my head, and up hanging on the ceiling was this a contraption that looked like a fish net. And inside it, there was stuff being held together in that net. My translator was a lady, and so she climbed up onto the bed, and she went up, and she brought the net down. And as she brought the net down, she opened it on the bed. She shouted out very loudly, these are all talismans that they use to ward off evil spirits. I saw, chicken feet that you have, chicken feet soup. Okay, so chicken feet, which was dried. I saw bones. I'm not sure.
Human bones, right?
I have no clue. Yeah, I saw bones. I saw a vial filled with oil and some weird-looking stuff in a small little bottle. And feathers, look like chicken feathers to me.
Wow.
And the top of the chicken head, the rooster, the reddish thingy. So it's all come together, and I was like, whoa, this is bizarre. I looked at the mom and says, if this was supposed to ward off evil spirits, then why is your daughter being oppressed? And and you could see tears rolling down from the mother's eyes because she did not know how to explain. And so I then explained to her, and she said, how do you know where to look? And so that's when I shared with her in greater detail that, I believe in God, and my God is Jesus Christ, and I believe He was the one, through the Holy Spirit, who was leading me to look at where I'm supposed to look.
You are not alone. Supernatural Confessions.
Previously on Supernatural Confessions.
Usually what's advised is that you go home and take a shower before you do anything else, but I was a bit stubborn. I didn't do that. I went to my friend's place to drink. So I basically hadn't showered for a good few hours after the investigation, and then when I went back home, I think I was so tired I just fell asleep. So when I woke up, it was some 6 p.m. I think, and I realized that I couldn't actually get out of bed properly because I had such a high fever. And I was perspiring, and I was just I felt really sick. So I'm like, okay, you know what, this is probably from the drinking. I just need a quick shower. So I went and hopped into the shower and everything. I guess pretty much for the rest of the day I couldn't function because I was actually that sick. My fever was fluctuating, and at some point it hit like 39, and I was just too sick to even go to the doctors. So I just laid in bed, took Panadol, self-medicated, whatever. And my fever didn't go away for like, I think, a good 5 days, nearly a week. I remember the details are a bit fuzzy now because it's been so long, but I remember my fever lasted for like nearly a week. And I was really just too sick to go to the doctors. I couldn't move, I couldn't do anything. And at that point in time I wasn't working for anyone, so it was okay. And I think the scariest thing that happened during that time was one of the nights that I was, I think I had abruptly woken up in the middle of the night, and because I was perspiring, although the air conditioning was on. I think I woke up, and I'm not sure if I was hallucinating or this indeed happened, but when I woke up, I sleep on a queen-size bed, right? So the spot next to mine is always empty. When I woke up that particular night, I was still having a really high fever, but it kind of felt like there was someone sleeping next to me. You know that feeling when you just know there's someone next to you? Yeah, so I kind of felt that. And then when I turned to my left, I actually saw this this dark, long figure, like a big figure. It looked like a male. I don't know what it was, but it was just dark and just seemed very ominous. But at that point in time, I was just too sick to do anything. I was too sick to even get up and scream or whatever. So I just pulled the blanket up and up over my head, and I told the thing, whatever it was, to just leave me alone, and I'm sorry if I disturbed it and whatever. I think I fell back asleep, but that was the scariest thing. And when I woke up the next day, I realized that maybe I actually should go get some help, and this wasn't just a normal fever. So I went to seek spiritual help from some practitioners, and it was only after that I got better. My fever went down the day after I visited the practitioners.
Would you go back there again?
No, not in a million years. You can't pay me enough to go back there. I've investigated so many different places, and nothing like this has happened. I mean, yeah, you come back, you see little small things here and there. You don't really think too much of it, but to actually have something sleeping in bed with me, and to have this almost never ending fever for like a week, I think that was when I got my wake-up call and realized I need to quit this completely.
Supernatural Confessions.
Previously on Supernatural Confessions.
It was already when we started our attachment at the hotel, so we were at the restaurant doing the closing shift, closing at about 10 plus or so. So one of the tasks we had to do was to, of course, clear the trash from the restaurant at the end of the day. These two female students who had to take out the trash, as usual, they left through the back door because it was closest to the refuse area where we normally dispose of our rubbish. So shortly after they went out with the rubbish, the 2 bags of rubbish, we heard a very loud scream from these 2 girls.
Oh no.
And then they came back running into the kitchen, and they were quite inconsolable. Like, they were weeping, they were like in a state of shock. So after they managed to calm down a little bit, what they told us actually sent some shivers down my spine.
What did they say?
They said they were taking out the trash, walking towards the refuse area. As they were approaching the refuse area, they saw a figure of an old man squatting down and rummaging through the rubbish.
Okay.
Yeah, so, they didn't really think a lot about it. It's like, maybe, it's some of those old folks who
collect cardboard and things like that.
Yeah, some reusable items. So they just, didn't pay attention. They just continued walking towards the refuse area. When they were much closer to the refuse area, this old man turned around. And according to them, they couldn't see any eyes. His eye sockets were black holes.
Oh, wow.
And his mouth was wide open. So they screamed, they just threw whatever they had in their hands, and they ran back into the kitchen. Yeah, so at that point of time, when we saw them, they were quite crazy. I mean, I don't think they'll be able to make up such a state of shock and hysteria.
Supernatural.
Is anyone here? Can you please give us a sign?
Supernatural Confessions.
Welcome to Supernatural Confessions, where we talk about myths, legends, all things supernatural, paranormal, superstitions as well. It's Timo, once again joined, of course, by my trusty co-host. His name is Eugene Tay. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing real good, Tim. Today, it's just not the two of us. We have our guest CSI speaker along with us.
That's right. We're talking, of course, about E.T., veteran paranormal investigator who over the course of the last, couple of decades has had some very, very interesting finds. We usually hear him during our CSI segment, but tonight is a special night because we're leading into the weekend. We managed to get E.T. to show up and show everybody his handsome, handsome face. How you doing, E.T.?
Doing great, bros.
Yeah. All right, so we want to say welcome, first and foremost, to everybody who has joined us on our little stream here on Facebook Live. The first thing you can do, of course, is to help us share the post, okay, over the next few minutes. How long do you think we're going to last tonight, Eugene?
I think we might bust 11:30 again, but you never know. Today's story is a bit tight. We're going to focus on just one main story, and we're going to get a lot of sharing. That's why we have ET here with us.
Exactly.
But for everyone who's watching us now, if you've just joined us, this is your first time. Please just give us a like, give us a comment, let us know who you are. We just want to, have some names there so we can know. Okay, because we always see there's a lot of eyeballs. There are people watching us live, but we don't know who they are. So
maybe it's the Hantu.
Yeah, always must be, right? Yeah. So and also if you can share this stream with your friends on your own Facebook wall, that would be great, because today is going to be an exciting session where we need all your comments and all your opinions.
That's right. And of course, every now and again, we're going to take a look at the comments and we will try and address the questions and the comments, of course, that you have left us as well. Okay, it's a huge night. In fact, I will say our main featured story dropped in our lap a little bit earlier this week. And this, I would say to date, is probably the most traumatic encounter I've actually read about since we started this whole Supernatural Confessions podcast. I mean, a lot of times we talk about stories, we hear, oh, this person happened to this and this and this and this person. But what I really love about this story is, aside from all the supernatural elements, it's a huge story about, distress and trauma, and how a lot of times people forget that when you have an encounter, sometimes it's not all that exciting. Sometimes it is downright scary. It can traumatize you. It can scar you for a very long time. And I know both E.T. and Eugene, having had such encounters in the past, are very familiar with all the human emotions that you're overcome by, right?
In fact, if you're watching this show, it's kind of interesting today, because when I read this story that was sent to us and I heard the audio, I was very stirred. I was quite disturbed. I thought back of my two very prominent investigations where I had to deal with a haunted house, and a lot of unnatural phenomenon happen. That it scars you. You're right. The word there is scar.
Yeah. So sure, it makes for some great Hantu stories when you want to share with your friends, but a lot of times what you don't hear is about how it has affected you since. And I know, E.T., you have also had, your own share of experiences as well during the course of your investigations, where you came down sick and, you were just battling with trying to put or process it in your mind. How do you deal with the whole, man, there's something going on, but I don't know what it is? There's a certain level of desperation that comes with the territory as well, right?
Yes, definitely. I guess especially when you're investigating the unknown, it's not like, okay, I mean, current situation is a bit like dealing with COVID. You don't know what to expect. You don't know what's happening. You don't have the right methods to kind of decipher exactly what's the cure or what's affecting you. So I mean that is the scary part. But the reason why I've been paranormal research for so long has always been that passion to see if things can be explained by science.
Yeah.
That's right. And of course, E.T. is going to be exhibiting that very critical, direction of investigation that he's known by. I'm sure we like to joke about the fact that he's a cynic, but that's just the way he likes to do his thing, right? I mean, with the three of us, we always joke that, if we had to have a hashtag, my hashtag would be, is it the Hantu? And then
mine would be hashtag must be the Hantu.
And ET's would be, can't be the Hantu, right? So tonight, that's exactly how we're going to approach some of the stories that we're going to be featuring tonight. But for those who have just joined us, thank you. I'm going to leave it to our founder, Eugene, to tell us what Supernatural Confessions is all about. What do we do? Where do we do it? And how can we get all our supernatural confessors to do it along with us?
Well, the best place to really get all the information is at supernaturalconfessions.com. We made it really easy. Even the name is so easy to remember, supernaturalconfessions.com. There on the main page itself, right at the very top, you'll find a form where you or anyone who you think has a story to share, use that form. It gets to us directly. If you scroll down even further, there's all our YouTube videos, our articles, our blogs, our confessions, our podcasts. And of course, if you're already watching us here, then you know that we are also on Facebook. That's where all the weekly information is. But if you don't have time to follow us every single day of the week, because we can get a bit noisy, right? On Fridays, what I'll do is I will pick up the best stories, the one that has gone viral, the one that has the most views, and we'll talk about it at the start of the show so that you don't miss anything out. And if you choose to go and check out on Facebook, then, take this as a summary. You can go and get more information on our Facebook page or on our website itself.
All right. And well, like Eugene was mentioning, you can always reach out. You can type us a confession, something that you've encountered or someone you know has encountered. And of course, if you are confident, you can reach out to us. And what we'll do is we'll actually call you and bring you on the show itself, either through a voice recording, a Skype call, or maybe even live as well. Okay, just reach out to us. This, of course, is a work in progress. We're getting better, hopefully, on a weekly basis. Okay, so please share the stream, comment, so we can say hello to people like Ziara. We've got Gemma who joined us, Nick, Grace, Shimin, Vin, Thomas, as always, Zach. And I guess the first question everybody also wants to know is, what are we drinking tonight, boys?
Is that a thing now?
Yeah, is that even a necessary question? Because I can tell you straight up, if you've been following the last couple of episodes, we know what Eugene is drinking.
I'm sorry to disappoint you guys today. I ran out of McQuakan already. So today I'm drinking a Darjeeling 18 years.
Darjeeling, 18 years. Ooh, okay. So I guess you didn't raid fair price for the McQuakan stash this time around. What about you, E.T.?
I'm having a Montepulciano red wine.
What? Oh, red wine,
Montepulciano.
Montepulciano, all this
The Abruzzo.
atas. Okay, and I, of course, I'm still struggling to finish the bottle of Lagavulin 16 that I opened 17 weeks ago or something like that. Okay, I want to give a big shout out and props, of course, to a couple of members of Supernatural Confessions who you don't actually see, but are very, very hard at work. One of them happens to be Geraldine, who posts up a lot of these viral things that you will see pop up, of course, during the course of the week on our Facebook, and of course, it makes its way over to our website as well. And the man who we could not do this show without, our operator, Alvin De Cruz, who I've also dubbed the voice of the voiceless.
Voice of the Hantu. Huh?
The voice of the... Hey, actually, maybe that's even better.
Voice of the Hantu.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to be hearing... Alvin lend his voice in just a little bit to our first confession, okay? But before we get into that, let's talk about some of the posts that made it to our website, some of the bigger posts that had quite a reaction from our Supernatural Confessors. And what are some of the big things that happened, especially here in Singapore, as it pertains to the supernatural, Eugene?
That's right. So there's one particular post that went totally viral. It was... Geraldine spotted it and posted it on our Facebook page. Right now, we are looking at 178,000 people reached. We have 1,500 shares, 181 comments. Let's take a look at what this post is about. Alvin, could you show that to us? Okay, so this is a photograph taken from CNA's regarding a incident that has happened in Singapore. It was unfortunate and someone passed away and lost his life. So what you see in this picture is a blurred image in the center of the road, right? Now, to any normal people out there, you would just say, oh, it's motion blur, and you shrug it off. But at Supernatural Confessions, for those of us who have witnessed hauntings, who are a bit savvy to superstitions, when we look at something like this in an area that has just seen a very tragic incident, we start to think otherwise. And what's interesting is in the comment section, over the 200 over comments, we have people who, they say that it must be just camera motion blur. And on the other end, people are actually saying, no, I've seen ghosts before, and that's how it looks like. Some people are talking about spirits roaming the area. So it's been discussing, it's so heated, it's so wonderful. So I thought I'll just bring it up here for our resident CSI to talk about it.
Exactly. All right. So E.T., over your years as a paranormal investigator, right, you've come across a lot of photos like this, some of which have been doctored, some of which cannot be explained, and that's when you kind of go, okay, maybe it could be the hantu. When you take a look at something like this, what are the factors that need to be considered?
I think the most important factor is actually lighting. So as you can see, it's actually in the evening, in the middle of the night, very dark. So the problem is with even our mobile phones, even with higher sensitivity and stuff, what happens is with low light, the aperture tends to be open a bit longer to capture as much light as possible. So sometimes when a person moves and don't stay static, you see that blurred vision or the blurred photo. So if you take a closer look at this photo, a really close look, you can see some shadows. So that's the number one thing that probably tells you it's probably not a hantu. Because generally, according to paranormal research, hantus don't cast any shadows. And the shadows are obviously cast from the street lighting, as you can see from the side. So you can see the angle of the shadows cast by all the humans there, as well as that blurred picture. So I would definitely think that it's because of the shaky hands. If you zoom in on the picture close enough, you actually see that the people in the picture as well, the cars are slightly blurred as well. They're not sharp. So with night shots, your hand has to be very, very still to take a sharp picture. But this one is quite obvious that it was slightly blurred.
Okay, but I mean, it's a bit coincidental, right? Your blurred image, or what, even if someone would say it's a smudge, right? This smudge has two legs. All right.
And I want to share, guys, I want to share some of the comments that people have left us. I've just picked some of the interesting ones. So again, what I love about this particular post is that you get two very diverse group of people chiming in, and they both really have so much conviction. Jeff Tan agrees with ET, and he says it's motion blur plus camera shake. This is taken at night. Auto exposure settings will probably make shutter speed slower. He was very sure about that. And then we also have Joey Cole. A lot of people have mentioned that there's a shadow. It can't be a ghost. Joey says all the comments saying it's not a ghost because there's a shadow. Sorry to burst your bubble, law, but ghosts can have shadows as well.
Really?
I know that.
Okay, because we've had this discussion before, okay, and I know ET is quite against the idea of a ghost having a shadow, but now you're saying that it is possible to see a supernatural entity cast a shadow.
Yes, and she knows this, and she's so sure about this because I have been able to see spirits since I was young, but this is just not a photo. But so she says she can see it since she was young. There is shadow, but this is just a photo. So whether it's real or fake is up to anyone's guess.
Okay.
I'm going to go to Eugene Choi. He says, only with the original metadata of the digital photos can we run through filters to determine authenticity. Interesting though, the image seems to be on a slow shutter as the other people, the figures around him, are somewhat blurry as well. So he hypothesized that everyone else is slightly still, but that person is moving. Then he again says, from my initial assessment, the ghostly figure does look somewhat authentic, and he asks us, what do we think?
Okay. All right. So we also don't know what exactly this photo, or rather what kind of device, what kind of camera this photo was taken from, right? Is it like from a high-def DSLR, or could it be an iPhone image? iPhones, as we know, sometimes the settings go a little nutty, especially if you try taking in portrait mode, right? Because you want that nice bokeh effect. This could be one of those things that just happen as well. But we have spent quite a bit of time talking about why maybe it's not the hantu, okay? So now let's move over to Eugene, who loves to say that it's about the hantu. Give us the reasons why this could very much possibly be whether residual energy or an entity sticking around following a very traumatic incident.
Well, see, when again, this is what I believe as well, and Janet Tan echoes this sentiment. When we die, our soul is still around for 49 days. That's what the Chinese believe, the traditions, the customs rather, especially those that died in tragic accident. The soul is shocked and it's not ready to go yet. It is common. So from understanding how souls work and all that, listening to what people have shared their experiences, when people die before their time, the soul tend to linger behind. For it to be captured on photographs, it's extremely rare. All the confessions so far has been just visual. There has not been any photographic evidence, none that I know of on a personal level.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, guys, for giving us your analysis on this. We also want to know from our supernatural confessors, our supporters, our viewers tonight. We've got over 100 of them looking at the photo as we speak. We don't just want you to follow our podcast, our show. We want you to engage with us and tell us what you think as well. So please drop us a comment. And if you need help, you need other people's opinion as well, you can share this on your stream. Okay, that is the most important thing. You'll hear Eugene and I talk about this every day, but Supernatural Confessions is while it's been around, I mean, and it's evolved over the years, and we're just going to run through a bit of a back history of Supernatural Confessions for those who have just joined us for the very, very first time tonight. Now, Supernatural Confessions was a brainchild, of course, of Eugene Tay. You know, it's the title of his book, you know, charting a very, very traumatic experience in his life. But obviously, over the last couple of years, over the last few months especially, it's grown into a network of supernatural enthusiasts, people just like us who believe that sometimes not all the answers can be found in science and logic and conventional rationalization. So what you can do to help us out is to help us grow this community. So please share it on your streams. Ask your friends to join us as well, especially if you think that this is something that they'd be interested in. Because at the end of the day, the more people that we have on board, then that really increases our network to draw stories from, okay? And at the end of the day, most of us are here because we want to hear Hantu stories. Isn't that right?
That's right. And that's where you guys, who, if you know you have any stories you really want to share with us, because I've come across some of our own Supernatural Confessions fan. You said that it's great to find a platform like this because you have always held on to a story in your heart. You cannot shake it off because no one's going to believe you. I know exactly how you feel, guys, to be doubted and to share what you went through, and everyone just thinks you're crazy. I can assure you at Supernatural Confessions, we don't judge you that way. In fact, when we listen to your story, we listen with an open heart. We don't debunk it. In fact, when even ET comes online to talk about things, we always look at different angles to talk about. We never ever claim this is bullshit. So
yes,
you can be very comfortable and confident sending it to us.
And you know what? Even if you think it's bullshit, right? You can always tell us too, okay? We accept all opinions. And of course, you know, that's how a good, healthy discourse is actually brought about, all right? Now, in case you're wondering why there's this guy who's just hunched over, not saying very much, you know, he just looks like a model, trying to show off his handsome face. E.T., of course, is joining us throughout the entire show tonight, right? And E.T., we've gotten to know, of course, a lot about myself and Eugene and how we actually got into this whole interest of supernatural. But for those, of course, who are still unfamiliar with you, you've been a paranormal investigator for quite a long time. But was there something that happened in your life that made you go, hey, the supernatural exists, and I'm interested to find out more?
Actually, since young, I've always been intrigued with the supernatural.
Okay, one moment. Alvin, I think E.T.'s volume is a little soft. If you could just raise it up a little bit. Or E.T., you got to go closer to your microphone, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay now?
Still a little soft, I think. Okay, why don't you try again, and then we'll see whether we can increase.
Yeah, okay. So basically, since young, I've always been intrigued with the supernatural. Always went to the library to borrow books to read up about the pyramids and the Bermuda Triangle, etc. So then I think it was in secondary school. That's where the first season of the X-Files came about, and it became my religion. So I followed it religiously about how their investigation and the various scientific approach that Dana Scully used to come up with. And Mulder's always the one that believed, right?
Obviously, you and I were watching Scully for very different reasons.
So then when I went to university, I was doing research for a certain project. And obviously, you don't always research about the stuff that you're going to write about. So then I went to just Google about Paranormal Singapore or something. And then there was this opening, there was this group that was starting. It was called Singapore Paranormal Investigators. So I wrote in with my resume, wrote about all the knowledge that I had, experiences I've had and stuff like that. And then they said, hey, you know, why not come and join us? And that's how it started. So I started as one of the founding members together with Kenny and this other guys called Charles. We kind of started Singapore Paranormal Investigators. It grew from strength. And then that was all the way in 2002. So we went for various paranormal investigations. People's house were haunted. We went down and stuff. So and then I never looked back because I actually got to practice all the stuff that I only read about in books. Yeah. I actually managed to plan the entire investigation and go down with my gadgets and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, so you were the Inspector Gadget, right, of the group. But I mean, as a child, though, you don't remember seeing any hantus or anything like that made you believe straight off the get-go?
Yeah, so the interesting thing is always thought that I had a psychological problem because sometimes I hear voices talking, but it's not in English. It's in a language that I cannot comprehend. Then came along one, I can't remember what series, but I remember it was a local Singapore series about some hauntings and ghost stories and stuff like that. And then before it goes to the advertisements, there's always this short like snippet, and then they have like sounds and music, and it was the exact same sound I heard. So apparently it is how spirits speak, some gibberish and stuff like that. So that thing got me intrigued. Bro, that one after too much drinks.
Yeah, that's after a couple of bottles of McQuakan, yeah? All right. Well, thank you very much. We're glad to have you on board. Welcome once again to ET. It's the three of us. We even have a nickname. What is the nickname you gave us, huh?
Who?
Tiga Baba, is it?
You almost
Three
said Bapa, right?
Piranakans. Three Peranakan dads.
Baba Bapas.
Okay. Bapas,
All
that's
right.
important.
Okay, then you can call it Dua Baba Bapo, okay? All right. In the meantime, thank you for that. Let's kind of move on a little bit. Aside, Eugene, from, of course, this photo investigation that of that photo of that image, right, that we talked about. Were there any other featured posts that we put up on our website?
This week, we have something called the Polong, O-L-O-N-G. Most of you guys know the Pochong, which is Esther's boyfriend. Now everyone's like having boyfriends and girlfriends with supernatural entities. So the Polong is actually the worst spirit you can experience of a murdered person that's controlled by a witch doctor. So that's also on our Facebook page and our website. And the other one is a Villa Nabila. This is a haunted house in Johor Bahru. We did a write-up about this, and some of the stuff that we have written in this article, you cannot find it anywhere else. It's actually researched and poked around by Geraldine herself, and she came up with this along with photographs. So that's also on the website or on our Facebook page. So this is what the main highlights of this week.
All right. So once again, check it out, supernaturalconfessions.com. And with that, we move on to our very first confession of the week. Now, last week, you may have remembered we featured something from Glenn, okay, talking about how he was in a playground and he heard something into his ear, right? Well, Glenn actually had a few more stories to share with us, and he dropped them on our Facebook page, actually, which is one of the ways you can reach us. But he was a bit shy, so he didn't really want to get recorded, and that's why we have our operator, Alvin De Cruz, not just the voice of the voiceless, but the sexy voice of the voiceless, who is going to be bringing life to Glenn's confession. Go ahead, sexy voice of the voiceless.
What I'm about to tell you happened in my dad's previous office at Kaki Bukit Industrial Terrace. My dad once hired a Burmese worker who was the only foreign worker there. So my dad let him stay on the second floor, which also had a toilet. Because he was the only one living there, he thought it would be easier to just bathe and walk around naked to his bed to change. That night, when he went to sleep, he was woken up by a slap to his face. He could still feel the sting of the slapped cheek when he opened his eyes, but he shook it off and went back to sleep. 1 or 2 days later, he came down with a fever. He was so weak he could hardly move. On one of those nights while he was resting, he had a dazed vision of a man standing beside his bed. This person told him to turn over and gave him a back massage. While giving him the massage, this person said to this Burmese worker, "My wife isn't happy with you walking around naked. That's why she slapped you. Don't do it again." The next day when he woke up, his fever had subsided and he recovered completely.
Wow. Okay, so that's pretty creepy there. It was so creepy that we kind of lost ET from the call. We're trying to bring him back on very, very as soon as we can. Okay, but yeah, straight off the bat, Eugene, what did you think of this story?
It got me at my massage, and my wife doesn't like to see you walking around naked.
Well, it's very familiar. It's a very familiar situation for you. Is that you like to go get massage, is it?
And walking around naked.
Okay, so I mean, he talks about this place over in Kaki Bukit, okay? And history-wise of the place is around the Bedok area, east side. You know that area very well. Does it have a history of hauntings or paranormal activity?
I think in one of the previous episodes, I talked about how my home used to be at Kaki Bukit area, Bedok Reservoir Road. All right. Yes, and we have had some encounters in the area. There was once a hill. I remember this because I was a young child playing on a hill on Kaki Bukit. There was a mosque at the top of the hill. We would go up, we would play in the forest area. And as a child, along with my cousin, I remember seeing what I thought was a headless person. I ran, everyone started running, and then we started giggling. So everyone was like, oh, back when you're children, everything's your imagination. So when I shared this with my parents, first thing they said is, oh, must be your imagination. You play too much, right? So for a very long while, I just believed it's my imagination. It's only later on when I'm a teenager and we moved out of Bedok area, Bedok Reservoir, Kaki Bukit area, that my dad said actually from my house, from the house where our flat used to be, they can look across and they can see cemetery. In that entire area where the mosque is, he said that's where people from the kampong area used to let go entities in that part. Now that hill no longer exists, they have leveled the entire place. You see HDB blocks around the area. But I remember my own childhood memories there. And Kaki Bukit area is actually very active back in those days.
Yeah, in fact, I was doing a little bit of reading, right? On Kaki Bukit, apparently there is an eerie abandoned hut on the hill. Was this the same hill you were talking about?
I suppose it must be the same hill.
But and the story is that people reportedly hung themselves there, and that's why that area is considered very haunted. Okay, but anyway, back to Glenn's confession, right? Okay, what is the likelihood of something like that happening, where you walk naked, and then you wake up to a slap, and then, I mean, was he dreaming? Because he said when he got out of bed, he woke up, he could still feel his cheeks stinging. Now, do you think this could be imagination? Sometimes you have such a deep dream that it manifests itself almost physically, that you can feel it when you're conscious.
There is always that possibility. Sometimes when you dream and then you're on that moment where you're about to wake up and you still feel that you're about to fall, or you feel the heart palpitation. So scientifically, there's always been some form of evidence that when you wake up from a dream, you still carry on that sensation. In fact, I have had dreams before where I woke up and I thought I'm on fire because I was dreaming that I was in a place that was burning. Of course, I felt it when I woke up, but only to realize later on I wasn't burning at all then. But it's not.
No, bro, you're naturally hot, that's why.
I totally lose my train of thoughts. But yes, you're right. But the other thing as well is we cannot always just try to push it off towards science and explain it away with science, because there are times as well where people have woken up with scratches and scars, and the only difference is when you're slapped on the face, you can't see the own mark on your own face as you could see bruises and scratches on your hand. So it's really hard to say whether that happened or it's just a dream for him.
Okay. The second thing I wanted to ask was, okay, supposing he did get slapped by, a ghost, okay, who was very offended by the fact that he was walking around naked, okay? The next thing that happened was he had a dream where it was this person's husband, okay, warning him, my wife is very, very upset, because you're walking around, with your whatever hanging out, right? Is that usually a thing with ghosts, like, wandering spirits, but a couple that both happen to be haunting that area?
I mean, couple spirits, not uncommon. When people have, conducted rituals where they would try to die and be matchmaked again in the afterlife. But for this particular story, why I'm laughing, it sounds very interesting. I like the idea of a jealous male, jealous ghost, husband ghost form who comes by to massage you and then reprimands you that his wife is offended. So the entire premise sounds
actually, to be honest, right? If anything, right? If anyone should be offended, it's the wife. Why is her husband massaging another guy? Right?
Yeah. So I'll take this story. While I'm not going to debunk it, of course, it's very hard to not laugh at the premise of the story.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. Thank you very much, Glenn, for your story. In fact, Glenn actually had another story that we're probably going to cover next week, okay, if we have a little bit of time. Still on this whole Kaki Bukit office, industrial estate where his father used to work, okay? Apparently that place, just based on these stories that are coming in, very, very active as it pertains to the paranormal. And should you have any stories as well regarding that area, the whole Kaki Bukit area, we want to hear about it as well. You can reach out to us on Facebook, or you can, find us on supernaturalconfessions.com. But we do want to say hello to a whole bunch of people who have just joined us tonight, don't we, Eugene?
Yeah, so I've seen some names, all joining us for the first time. Nitha, Ella, Govan, Janan, Jay Ho, a lot of new names today. And I think based on the eyeball logo there, we have a lot more viewers today than we did when we first started off about a month ago when the lockdown first started. So for those of you who's just joined us, you don't know what's going on, you want to, catch up on the stuff that you have missed out, well, the best place to go to is supernaturalconfessions.com. That's where you'll find all our YouTube, our podcasts, and everything else. But more importantly, right now, what we're going to get into is one of our main story for today. And we really want your opinion. So do share this stream with all your friends on your wall. We want to get as many people here as possible because this is a story that, like Tim said, he spoke out. When I heard this story, and I've heard a lot of stories over my time at Supernatural Confessions, it left me feeling very uneasy at the end of the night.
Actually, Eugene's actual words when I sent it to him, he said, wow, if someone had called me with this story, right, this is the kind of story where I would have gotten out of my house, hopefully not during the circuit breaker measures, right, at 3 a.m. in the morning and taken a grab and gone down to his house immediately to go and check it out, okay? A few more people we want to say hello to before we get into that story from Nil. Zach has joined us as well. Janet, as always, good to see you. Gayendra. Beng Wei actually dropped us a comment saying, it's my first time here. Is that Timo from Kiss 92? Yes, it is. Actually, I had half a mind to go, no, we just look very, very similar. But yes, it is I. Yes, except no, the real Timo is way more handsome. Nitha says, one of my relatives that used to live with me was satanic and he brought home a lot of things. Well, then this is the episode you want to watch because tonight, not just are we going to hear from one of our confessors, but we're also going to be hearing from a supernatural practitioner who's going to weigh in on some of the things you can do in your house, especially if you're moving into a new space that can protect you, okay, from negative energy or wandering spirits as well, okay? Before we go into Nil's confession, there is something else that we want to talk about. We're stretching a little bit of time because we realize that there are some people who are still yet to join us, okay? So we're trying to fill up as many people as we can before we go into the main story. But something that was very, very exciting that Eugene is putting together is a Supernatural Confessions exhibition team.
Exhibition team?
Expedition team.
Well, we exhibit ourselves. Offend some goals along the way. Yeah, the exhibition. I also say exhibition. Expedition team. So this is something I've wanted to do for a very long time. Ever since I've got married and I have a kid, it's very tough for me to do lockdowns and put myself into dangerous situations. And so what I've spoke to Zach about, and Zach's the 25-year-old version of me. He's very gung-ho about wanting to do this. He's been, contacting a lot of people. So what we're trying to do is we cast the net out and says we're looking for four categories of people. One is the researchers, people who just love to be at their desk, find out stories, dig in, stuff that you cannot just find on Google. You got to go down and pick up the phone and ask questions. That's the researchers we want. We also need production crew because this is not the kind of show that you could get a professional production crew with the equipment and the rigs to come in and shoot a movie. It's not. It's almost like reality TV, and you need the cajons to go into a haunted place with us. So a production crew, some guy who knows audiographer, videographer, video editor. That will be the production team. We also need the tech guys, the someone like E.T., Mr. Gadget, who loves taking things apart, finding out why certain things work, understand the science behind paranormal investigation, and use gadgets and devices to try to capture evidence. And the fourth one, which we seem to have like a lot of people signing up for that is the urban explorers. These are the guys who will be the vanguard of the group, going in, with just 3 of them, isolation in different parts of the building, and locked down in a haunted place just to get the evidence for you guys. So if you think that you are cut out for the frontline work, where you want to be in the thick of the action and you think you got what it takes to tell a story and bring the story to life, then we want you to be part of the Supernatural Confessions expedition team.
Well, who knows? You might become so popular, you might be an exhibition team as well, right? Speaking of which, though, I mean, look, we're just going to be very, very upfront about this. We all do this for passion, okay? Both Eugene and myself, and of course the rest of our team, we do this because we're passionate about it. We don't get paid. We're not currently sponsored, although if you'd like to sponsor us, by all means, we could start with a bit of whiskey first, right? If you're wondering, look, is this expedition team going to be paid? Unfortunately, at this point, no, we're all doing this out of personal interest, okay? So unfortunately, we're appealing to people who just really, really are interested and they would go and do this on their own anyway, all right? Although that's not to say you can't end up becoming very wealthy when you're chasing the supernatural. We have heard about stories about how if you help a pocong out, they give you money. We've also heard that, you know, if you come across a Pontiana and you control her with the string to your toe, you can get her to do anything you want her to do as well. Okay, so that's out there. Will you get paid? Well, probably, but just not from us. Okay, at least not at this moment. Once again, where you want to sign up, if you are interested, spread the word, of course, to your friends. If you think they might be interested as well, a couple of places on Facebook. I believe Zach is going to be replying directly to them. Yeah, Eugene?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And of course, the other place is supernaturalconfessions.com. All right, so we've been dragging this out a long time. Is E.T. back with us now?
Yeah, he is back already.
He is. Okay, finally. See, sometimes get so scared. He ran away and then helped himself to a drink before joining us again.
I'm sure he chickened out.
It's the EMF. Must be the EMF.
Okay, let's switch across to Let's switch across and show E.T. as well. E.T., you're there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So once
Sorry
again,
about it, man.
No worries. It's E.T., Eugene Tay, and of course Timo hosting tonight's Supernatural Confessions podcast show. All right. So before we move into our next confession, all right, just a brief history. Now, Nil, that's what he's called. That's his name. He reached out to us earlier this week. Okay. And he contacted us. We decided to call him back to get his story. And Nil, I asked him, I said, how did you get to know about Supernatural Confessions as well, right? And he said, he came across it on Spotify. You know, he enjoys us talking about the Hantu stories as well. You know what I mean? So once again, you know, we're reaching a wider audience, wider than ever before. You can help us out by sharing our content with your friends. We're talking about our Facebook posts. We're talking about our YouTube videos, which Eugene puts a lot of work into. Of course, our audio podcast, which is My Pride and Joy, My Little Baby, which is found on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, just about anywhere that podcasts are found. Okay, so you'd be doing us a big favor if you were to share all our content with your like-minded friends. The first thing, of course, you can do while you're watching this right now is to help share the stream. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that said, his name is Nil, and he had something that happened to him a few years ago, and this is a doozy. You don't want to miss it. Take it away, Nil.
So this happened between 2007 and 2008. Me and my then girlfriend, now wife, had just moved into her new place. It was a brand new condo situated in Novena. It was next to Kingley Road and Kampong Java Road in a small lane. It was cul-de-sac lane, so it was quiet. There were other condos and 2 massive houses that were being built at that time. That whole area was quite dark at night. When we moved in, I knew the history about Novena. You know, it was just 300 meters ahead of KK Hospital. It was very near the old Tan Tock Seng mortuary. That whole area was built over a Jewish cemetery, and I read about, you know, the sightings on the MRT when it was being built and all of that. So
did that concern you at all, or did it just make you more excited to kind of move there?
It didn't concern me much at all. But we used to take very frequent walks in the evening, and one of the first things we both noticed was that immediate vicinity just had a lot of temples and churches and shrines, just standalone shrines. It was just really strange because you could count at least 10 within a 200-300 meter radius. So that was the first thing that screamed out to us as we started exploring the neighborhood. So that was interesting, but again, we didn't think much of it. Back to the apartment. So my girlfriend, or my wife, is fairly sensitive in that she can sense when the atmosphere changes and becomes a bit uncomfortable. I mean, she can't see anything or whatever, but she just gets that sense of dread when she's in a situation where there could be things around. So it didn't take her long for her to say one evening that she didn't feel like we were alone in the apartment. And it was just a fairly casual remark. But over the days and weeks, she had said it a couple of more times. In particular, she felt that the air in the house had become a bit heavy. I didn't feel anything, I didn't notice anything, but I wasn't dumb enough to dismiss it. So I just said, okay, and left it alone. You know, I made friends with the security guards at the condo, and they would randomly tell me that they would see shadows at night at their stations. One even said that when he took a snooze in the gym, you know, at some point in the middle of the night, someone whispered his name into his ear.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, suffice to say, he never went back to sleep in the gym again.
Yeah.
And then there were small things that happened which, you know, I dismissed. For example, one night we had an argument and I got relegated to sleep in the living room sofa, and the TV turned on by itself. But, you know, there were just these random things that I didn't really attribute to anything.
Did you consider maybe you had electrical issues or surges or things like that might be responsible for some appliances coming on or going off on their own?
I didn't really. It was just a brand new condo, so I didn't think it was an issue, so I just kind of dismissed it.
And your TV at the point was new as well, was it?
Yeah, everything was new. But the first big incident happened when her mum came into town, which pretty much meant that I had to move out and go back to my parents' place.
Yeah.
It was a Saturday afternoon, so bright daylight in the afternoon, and my wife was sitting in the living room watching TV, and her mum was in the kitchen, and all of a sudden she felt something jump on her and start to strangle her.
Wow.
And she was just frozen in fear, and she couldn't call out for her mum. And it happened for about 2 minutes, and then it stopped. And then when her mum came to the living room, she just saw the state of her daughter, and she got panicked.
Could you describe the experience for your wife? You said she felt something choking her. So was it strong? Was something pressing her down to the ground?
Something was pressing her down into the sofa, and she said she felt the life sucking out of her. And she said she felt like she was going to die. That was how she described it.
So when her mom came and saw her, at that point, was the presence still there?
The presence had gone. She didn't tell her mum what had happened. She just said that she wasn't feeling well, but she was understandably very badly shaken and terrified. So that was like the first major incident in the house.
Okay.
Then there were the nightmares, which we both had. She had them more frequently than I did, but she would wake up in the middle of the night shouting in fear, and then I would have to calm her down. We were quite desperate after that.
Did you have any recollection of what because you say you also had bad nightmares as well. Do you remember what it was that you were dreaming of?
No, I can't. For the life of me, I cannot remember. But I just know that, yeah, they were nightmares, and I'd wake up with a jolt. We got quite a bit desperate, but we didn't know what to do. Moving out wasn't an issue. It was newly bought. We wanted to stay in our house.
Yeah.
We finally found a priest that could help. He was a Hindu priest. He prayed, and he pretty much confirmed and said, yep, you've got a demon, but I can help you. So come back in a week. So one night that week, we were asleep, and she had a nightmare, and she woke up with a fright because she had a dream which ended in a lady screaming, and she was convinced that the scream had come from the room.
You were next to her at this point?
I was next to her, so I pacified her and I said, nightmare, go to bed. I didn't tell her that I had the same dream at that exact same time and heard the same scream.
Around what time did this happen? I mean, because you mentioned both of you were having nightmares and you guys would be waking up in the middle of the night. Did it usually happen around the same time?
Yeah, I mean, it would be anywhere between 2 to 4, I think. So that wasn't fun. So we had to go through an entire week before heading back to see the priest. And I remember that day well when we went to see the priest because it was a Tuesday night. he gave us a cream in a white box. It looked like a cream that the doc will give you if you've got a rash. You know, it was just a normal type of cream. And he said, when you go back tomorrow morning, just take your finger, dab it around your house, all the walls, all the windows, that's it. And we said, that's it? He said, yeah.
Do you have any idea what kind of cream it was?
No. I mean, he obviously had prayed and he had blessed it, and that's all I know. And I remember taking it, and we didn't want to go home that night. We went to the United Square, which is near our house, and we sat out in Starbucks, and we just looked at each other, and we just thought, do we really have to go home?
Did the priest give you any other info about this this entity? Why it was targeting you? What motivations it had?
No, and we asked because for some reason asked if it was me. Did I bring something in? He just refused to say. And he said, just take it and it'll be fine. So we went back home that evening. It was, I remember, close to midnight, and we opened the door of the house, and the moment we turned on the lights, there was this loud explosion-like sound, and we both jumped back in shock, and all the lights went off.
Oh.
Yeah, and we looked at each other, and my wife was terrified, and me being the man meant I had to go in. It goes to the fuse box, which was all the way into the kitchen, the pantry. So we turned on the light and didn't sleep very much that night. The next morning, we woke up. First thing we did as we were told. We dabbed the cream around the house. I kid you not, when we had finished, you could feel the air just lift, just the negative air and the negative energy just lift.
Wow.
The house felt lighter, it felt brighter. We just felt happier, and we were so relieved. And so we never had an issue for about 2 years. It was completely fine. And then 2 years later, we decided, yeah, the house needs a fresh coat of paint. So we repainted the house. We painted obviously all the walls, and so we painted over the cream where we had the areas in which we had dabbed the cream. Within a week, we started getting nightmares again. And we thought, yeah, that probably wasn't a great idea. Went back to the priest, got our scolding, gave us the cream, and we went through the same motions all over again.
Yep.
Everything was okay. And after a couple of months, we were in a position where we could sell the house. And that's what we did.
Okay. Couple of questions. Number one, just take us back to the condo. You mentioned this was a brand new condo that you moved into.
Yeah.
There hadn't been anybody living there before you actually went in?
Not that we know of.
Oh, okay. So it had just been built. There were no previous tenants. I'm just trying to get a bit of a history of this place. Do you know what the building used to be before it got turned into a condo?
They were just really old apartments that were there.
Okay. Did you ever make friends with any of your, surrounding neighbors to find out if they had experienced similar things?
I did. I never asked them, but I will tell you a really weird story. There was one afternoon, again, it was probably a Saturday, and I looked out of my room and I saw the condo that was being built across the road from us. The developers had shown up and they were doing some prayers. They were burning some joss sticks, and I thought that was quite curious because it was still nowhere close to completion. And that evening I went down, I talked to security guards, and I said, what was going on? And they laughed and they said a couple of the construction workers had seen a spirit jumping about the construction site.
Wow.
And they were freaked out. And this wasn't one worker, it was a group of them. I thought that was interesting. Don't know if it was real, figment of someone's imagination, but that was the story.
Yeah. Did you notice a lot of people around you in your condo kind of moving in and moving out very quickly?
Most of the people were renting. We were one of the few people that actually owned the apartments. There was a small pool at the condo, and in that pool area, it was pitch dark at night around the pool. Like, we wouldn't go. And my wife always refused to go to that area. She said, I am not going there.
Wow. How about things like temperature changes and stuff like that in the house? Were there areas where were particularly cold or warm, unexplainable?
No, but what did happen as it kept getting worse, I started to feel heavy. You could sense that the house had become heavy. And again, I'm not very sensitive to these things, but I started feeling it. It almost felt like it was smoky, as weird as it sounds. The air was just so still and heavy. And again, after you put that cream, the difference was just so noticeable.
And did you find yourself, you or your wife, falling ill a little bit more, or was it just basically your moods that had been affected? Did you have any physical ailments as a result?
No, but I think we did argue a lot more than we were. I think it was just the situation just stressed us out.
And then when you eventually sold the place and you moved somewhere else, did anything happen again? Did you feel like anything followed you, or whatever happened in that original condo just kind of stayed there and you guys have been happy since?
Yeah, I mean, it never followed us. We moved to a new place. There was nothing. We've not had any issues. And like I said, my wife is sensitive. When we first met, she was from Hong Kong. She just moved here. She didn't know Singapore well. We went for dinner at Changi Village, and as we walked by Changi General Hospital, she just let out a yelp and pretty much took off on foot. And she said just didn't want to go anywhere near there. And she didn't know the history of the area, the hospital. But I knew from then that she was quite sensitive. And, she's been so traumatized by the experience that, we can't watch horror movie. We can't tell ghost stories. It's really affected her.
Wow. And, you mentioned that you do have a kid as well. Children, we hear, are particularly sensitive to these things as well. But your baby, 4 years old, very happy.
Yeah, and actually back to the Novena house, after we put the cream, we also adopted a dog. We told ourselves if there's still something in the house, the dog would probably
pick up on it.
Yeah, pick up on it. And there never was an issue. Interestingly, there were parts around Kingley Road, because Kingley is pretty much surrounded by a huge canal where the dog would refuse to go to. But in our house, it was completely fine after that.
So when you guys repainted the place, and you mentioned that the nightmares kind of came back, you had a dog already by then?
Yes.
Did you notice any difference in your dog when you guys started having the nightmares again?
No, not really. We had the nightmares, and I remember she said, yep, it's back. Yeah, we need to go and sort it out.
But throughout the entire experience, you never got any messages, any clear messages from whatever it was in that place, other than giving you nightmares, or when things would go on and off. It never tried to communicate its intentions or what it wanted with you guys?
No, there was never any form of communications. I wouldn't think that I would have had the guts to attempt to ask any questions as well.
Do you feel like it was trying to pressure you to get out, to make you feel unwelcome in your own home?
Yeah, and I think it worked eventually, right? I mean, we just wanted to be out of the house all the time. We didn't want to go back, but eventually we sold the house, not because it chased us out or anything, but while it was there, I mean, certainly we didn't want to be there.
And when you eventually moved to a new place, were there certain precautions that you guys took to avoid a situation like this ever happening again?
Oh, completely. We went back to the same priest and we said, we're going to move, can we bless the house? And he said, yes, you absolutely can. He said, fill up a bottle of water from your tap and bring it to me. And that's what we did. And he blessed it. And he said, now just sprinkle it all around your house. And that's what we did.
All right. So if someone else would hear your story and come to you and say, look, we're experiencing something like that in our new apartment, what would you say to them?
I would send them to the priest pretty much straight away. We tried everything. Again, we didn't know what to do. We went to psychics and tarot card readers, and we were trying to find out, what can we do? We didn't know who could help us. And then just finally, by just sheer luck, divine intervention, we just found someone that could help us.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that, Nil, and for going into so much detail. I'm so glad that you guys are in a much better place now as well.
Thanks for listening, Tim. Have a good day and good week.
You too, and stay safe, okay?
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. Wow. All I got to say is, wow. Just listening to that again, and obviously this was pre-recorded, right? And no matter how many times I hear it, I can't help I'm not just awed by the amount of detail of the supernatural activity, but I'm also just floored completely by what this poor family had to go through. I mean, so much trauma, so much emotional scarring. And, guys, I asked you about this earlier on tonight, and one of the reasons why I wanted to bring both of you onto the show, not just to analyze the supernatural elements, but because the both of you have dealt with similar trauma in the past of your own, where something has afflicted you. You know what I mean? You feel you've been attacked. You've got something that no matter how much you try to process it rationally in your your mind. You can't. And you end up feeling desperate. Like, what do you do? I mean, Eugene, obviously you know all about it. You wrote a book about, how you spent years trying to fight an unseen entity, not knowing what to do. It's all trial and error. Tell us about this kind of what goes on through your mind when you're faced with this kind of, uncertainty.
Hearing Neil's story, I'm having flashbacks. I'm having like PTSD moments, when we sometimes, I think I speak on behalf of ET when I say this, as investigators, we sometimes take a lot of things for granted. We are desensitized to a lot of horror. But when hearing Neil's retelling of how he felt, you could almost sense that hint of desperation in his voice. Obviously, he didn't show it as he's talking about it, but I'm unable to sell the house because we just moved in, and it's a financial issue. We are literally, you are stuck. You have nowhere else to go, and you're dealing with something you can't see. You're dealing with something you can't fight. It's not something you can report the police to. That you can't go to the town council and says my house is haunted. You literally have no one else to talk to, and at that moment, it's very, very isolated. And especially when you're a couple, it's very. You may think that as couples, you will tend to go through, the ups and the downs together. But when you're trying to make sense of things and just trying to fend for your own survival, he didn't mention this, but I can almost imagine for a number of families that I've been to and I help them do the investigation, it always have fights in the family. One person will say something, the other person will say, rubbish, don't talk cock. But actually he himself, like he admitted, right? I have heard it, I heard the scream, but I tell her, go and sleep.
It's just a dream, right?
But
because it's a tough position, right? It's a tough position to be in as well, because you're not just scared yourself, but you're trying to be brave for the person next to you too.
Yeah. But when you're doing that, what happens is you're denying the other person what she, or not denying, you're not admitting.
You're dismissing it, right?
Yeah, you're correct. You're dismissing. So to the person who has heard it, to her it's very real, right? But for you to go, no lah, then that's where the isolation happens, when you both try to start fending for yourself and you no longer share all this because why bother? No one believes me anyway.
Yeah. And it's almost heartbreaking to hear that they've been so scarred, especially the wife. She, he already admitted she's particularly sensitive, right? But then having to go through a situation like this, every movie, they can't talk about ghosts. I'm sure, lots of things that happen every day just brings back flashbacks of that very, very traumatic experience that they went through. We've been talking a lot about Eugene. His struggles, of course, with the supernatural are very well documented. E.T., very, very early on when we started Supernatural Confessions, you also shared with us a story about how at one point something attached itself to you, right? And you got very, very sick, and you also really didn't understand why as well. How did that make you feel when you were dealing with the unknown?
One, it definitely wasn't COVID.
And you gotta go closer to the mic, bro.
Yeah. Ken?
Still a bit soft? Yeah. Still a bit soft. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it was during an investigation. I think sometime in 2002 as well. So what happened was this. It was a block in Red Hill. After the investigation, so basically some of our gadgets went off. Our motion detector went off. Camera caught something, a door moving inside of an abandoned flat. And then I got very, very sick. So to me, it's after seeing a doctor 3 times and taking 3 doses of antibiotics, I felt the antibiotics worked. But something deep down inside me told me that it's probably something else. It's probably a spirit that probably attached to me and kind of tapped off the life force. I really don't know. We'll leave that story probably for another episode, I guess.
Yeah, but how did it make you feel though? I mean, am I going to get better? What's going on? I've taken my medication. It's still not working. How do I get better? You do find yourself almost in a situation of desperation because you don't know what you've been afflicted with, what's causing it, and when are you going to get better, right?
I think that's not just all, because my ex-colleague, she apparently saw that child's spirit because she's got a third eye. And then she said, hey, Eugene, you've got this thing that's been following you for the past 1-2 weeks. So
that's even worse, right? That's even worse.
So I said,
Other people are telling
why
you
never tell me? Yeah, why you never tell me? She said, no, I was just trying to ascertain why I was following you. Okay, never mind. Then I asked her next, how? Her answer was the ultimate. Oh, usually when they attach to you, they'll never leave you.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah.
It's even worse sometimes when other people can see something and you can't. Imagine, Eugene, okay? The lights are off and I tell you there is a cockroach in your room.
Oh,
You can't
yo.
see it. You can't see it, but I've told you that it's there. That's almost worse than actually seeing the cockroach itself, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's head back to Nil's story. There are a few things we want to cover, and it's great that we've got ET here as well. I mean, let's just run through the supernatural elements of the story, okay?
Yeah.
He says they were having dreams, okay, where they would have the same dream at the same time.
Yeah.
How does this work? Can you be so affected by spirit that it's manifesting in both your subconsciousness?
When people say they are dreaming and they are having a nightmare, that's just a very convenient way to explain things away because you are asleep and you are not aware. But what actually happens in the spirit world is your soul, actually your astral travel out of your body into a different world. And a lot of what this world is has been documented over different religions, different belief system. But at least in every belief system, there is your human realm and the other realm. And that's where all these things exist. So for you to have a nightmare is what you think, what is the name that you would give to your experience. Actually, some of these nightmares are extremely real. But when you wake up, you're back in the safety of this realm. You just brush it off as a dream. And as long as you don't keep thinking about this again, to you, that's been done and dusted. But for those of you who have actually lived through supernatural experiences, you know the very first and most obvious telltale sign is recurring dreams. By recurring dreams, people can just still say, hey, it's just your overactive imagination. Now, when you have two people in the house having very similar dreams, it's a bit harder to debunk, right? And this has happened to a lot of couples I know. Mainly a lot of haunted houses where there's a demonic presence, or at least if it's not demonic presence, it's a very strong entity that has the ability to move things around the house. Nightmares are very common. Synchronized nightmares is also very common. But you know what's the funny thing about that?
What?
4 or at least 5 out of 5 times when I talk to families like that, the husband and the wife will never confirm each other's dreams. But they, on the side, they'll say, actually, what my wife say is right. I was just too afraid to tell her. And that's been a very common thing.
Yeah. All right. E.T., in our previous discussions, you've talked about astral traveling, okay? Sometimes coming out of body experiences. Do you think this could be a situation where both husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, were kind of astral traveling to a different realm? That's why they have these common experiences?
Okay, I think we got to look at the entire story in totality. Two interesting points to note was that the kid and the dog detected nothing because animals tend to be a bit more sensitive. This is an interesting point, which also leads me to the field of feng shui, that it's not so much supernatural, but basically how the position of your building is and stuff like that. I'm not sure exactly where the location of their home was, but it'll be good to actually find the place and actually go down and check whether there's very high fluctuations of EMF. It depends on the floor that he's staying at as well. Because on a dive trip, I actually went, one of the guys that went diving.
Sorry, Chotomate, hang on. Eugenia.
Yeah.
E.T. mentioned EMF. We all got to take a drink.
Oh.
That was the deal. Every time E.T. mentions EMF, right? Everybody's got to cheers, okay? Cheers. All right. Yes. So feng shui energy movements can result in a fair amount of EMF. Yeah.
Not that it can result in, but a place with high EMF. I mean, like I was saying earlier, I went on a dive trip. There was this brain surgeon that I spoke to. I asked him if high fluctuations in EMF actually affects the mind. And he agreed that very high levels of EMF actually tricks your mind into perceiving things which are not there. So assuming that this place has got high EMF fluctuations, you guys should keep drinking, right? Because I keep mentioning EMF, right? So yeah, it might be causing them to be dreaming about things that know that it's beyond what is real. Another interesting thing to note is that sometimes the power of persuasion, the thing about his wife or girlfriend telling him about certain things might actually form impressions in ourselves, just like how you watch a horror movie and then you might relate almost anything to the hantu. So that is one, but I also find some truth or some question marks to science with regards to Neil's case, that a lot of things that he said, it doesn't conform to the usual scientific explanation of paranormal activity. So I think there is some form of or something that's happening there that we really can't explain.
Okay. So could this be a poltergeist? All right. And, we've heard that name thrown around a lot. There was mention of a demon as well. There was also a mention of ghosts as well. But before we tackle this next topic, all right, I think for myself and, of course, for our viewers as well, Eugene, can you explain what exactly is a poltergeist? How is it different from a demon or a ghost?
Okay. So this is Supernatural Confessions 101, right? When we say ghost or we say hantu in this case, is usually the catch-all term for anything that is not human, anything that's spiritual. When I talk about ghosts and when we talk about, there's a haunted place, usually what we meant is maybe there's a restless spirit. Maybe there's residual energy. We feel uncomfortable. Maybe we can see there's a shadow moving. But usually these are all very, very harmless. They don't disturb you. You just feel uncomfortable because of the pressure, the air presence, the fluctuating EMF in the room. But the entity rarely can come up and harm you. And if you listen to grandmother, where they say, you are stronger than the ghost. When you disbelieve or you shout at them, the ghost will be scared of you and run away. Or the other very famous Chinese belief, if you don't do anything wrong, you're not worried that a ghost will come and hunt you, right? So these are the garden variety of wandering spirits, restless spirits. Then there is the next level of entity, next level of haunting. Now this is your sentient, more intelligent haunting. This is where the poltergeist activities will start to happen. Things will move, doors will slam, curtains, lights will switch off by itself. You remember putting the file on the table, you move away, you come back, the file has moved on the floor. You sleep at night, you wake up next morning, you appear somewhere else. Now, when an entity can move you around, this usually means that entity is stronger than just a wandering spirit. Now, what is this entity? There's a few different variations and beliefs. The Muslims says that there is no such thing as dead spirit or ghost. They are jinns, and jinns tend to manifest abilities that resembles what we also know as poltergeist activities. Again, but poltergeist or spirits that are so strong that they can move and interact with our world may not necessarily mean that they have a nefarious intent. In the case of Neil, the spirit did not move. He moved out of the house. The spirit just did not follow him to the new house because the spirit is in that location. It's a new house. He just bought it. So I'm led to believe that the spirit is actually in the land. It could be there for hundreds of years. It's really fed off the energy of the place. It's actually very sentient.
But before you're so quick to just rule out that it's malicious, I mean, it did do some pretty intense, hardcore things, which are far from positive. I think everyone would agree. I mean, choking somebody, switching off lights. This thing was really trying to scare them and to make them feel unwelcome in their home.
But the thing did not harm them. The thing just want to chase them out.
I don't know, bro. Getting choked and getting pressed down into a sofa, that seems...
Well, I mean...
Bro, but sorry for cutting in, but if you hear his story carefully, she wasn't really choked. She has sensation of choking.
And
it's
she also said being
choked.
pressed down into the sofa.
Yeah, that is quite common, especially before her mom came to her house, which leads me to the point that sometimes what we don't realize are the other facts. We tend to look at humans are humans. We tend to bring up things which happens, which sounds like a sensation. But you think about it, if you listen to the entire story, the first occurrence happened when his girlfriend's mom came over. So she was probably busy cleaning up the house so the mom wouldn't nag and everything. So she's probably very, very tired. And if you heard of sleep paralysis, okay, don't forget she wasn't standing up and she got choked. She was in a resting position on the sofa, not lying down, but probably sitting. So even though you're seated, you're probably rested. So that what could actually happen, she was actually entering a sleep paralysis. Many people who actually enter sleep paralysis, you actually realize that you want to scream, but you can't scream. You have a sensation of something pressing you down, which is almost 100% of what she described. The only thing that don't usually occur during sleep paralysis is a choking sensation. But it's a sensation. He did not mention that there was physical marks which is why I brought up EMF. Okay, raise your glasses again. Because
I think he's doing this on purpose, no, bro.
Because the things that occurred was very electrical based. The TV going on, lights going out and stuff like that was very electrical based, which is why I feel there might be some EMF surge that's causing this.
I'm out of drinks, man.
I swear. Okay, but here's the thing, right? And I knew you were going to blame it on those 3 letters, okay? The electromagnetic force. I'm not even going to use the abbreviation. And that is why I tried to get as much information as I could. You heard the kind of questions that I was asking him as well. Could it be an electrical surge? Is that what is causing your...
It's not so much an electrical surge, but a place where there's high fluctuation of EMF. Either he's staying near a power station, tons of power lines that's running under his flat, or something like power lines.
Running underground river, things that would generate electromagnetic field around the area. Which you also asked whether neighbors have reported, and he didn't. He couldn't tell you, right? Because that's one way we could identify whether it's just his house or whether it's the entire estate. Because if everyone has very similar experiences, then we can always say, it's the underground cable that is a problem.
Okay, but I mean, if some of the other stories or some of the other facts that he was mentioning, or if some of the other details that he was mentioning are to be taken seriously, right? This whole area that he's staying in fits the profile of something that would be very, very heavy in paranormal activity. Number one, and I know how you feel when it comes to cemeteries. You believe that cemeteries are very, very peaceful places. He mentioned this area was built over a Jewish cemetery. It was near the Tan Tock Seng mortuary. It's also relatively near the KK hospital. You are very familiar with the whole Halifax area. I think you and I are very familiar with this area. You remember where my cousin used to stay, where Song used to stay with her?
Yeah.
This is that area. This is the exact area. And for E.T. who's wondering where we're talking about the whole Kampong Java area close to Newton area, right? Which, according to Neil, who's done his research, does have quite a storied history, surrounded by temples and all sorts of religious buildings there as well.
But don't forget, Singapore is small. In the past, everywhere was a cemetery, which is why I always joke that in Singapore, hauntings per capita is really high.
There's one other way of looking at this, ET, and I maybe we can I can share this with you, and you see how far off the mark I am with regards to the electromagnetic field in the area. Now,
God! Now I got a drink when you say it too. Is it?
Let's just assume, for the sake of this discussion, that the place itself does not have a sentient entity haunting it. Let's just, for the sake of this discussion, right? When we look at the area around it, there is the underground longkang, right, that cuts through all the way from Rochor through that place. That place used to be cemetery. Even though when you move the bodies out of the cemetery, the residual energy still remains. And why there's so many different religious buildings there? As we know, sometimes religious buildings are built upon areas where there's ley lines or a slightly more higher vibration. So could the cemetery, the churches with all its vibrations and the running water cause that vortex in that area to be a gateway? A, as a gateway that affects people, or B, a gateway that attracts entities to that location, or C, maybe even open a portal, and right at their house is where all these forces and energy cross over. What do you think?
I mean, that's the interesting thing about paranormal research, that many times where paranormal activity takes place, there's high levels of EMF. So the scientists would say that it causes things in our mind that makes us perceive things, but I also would like to believe that because of all these ley lines, fluctuations in EMF, it actually attracts certain entities as well. So I would think it's a bit of A and B, a bit of both. Not that it opens a portal, but it actually both attracts as well affects the way that we perceive things. Yeah, so that this is a bit of both, I would think.
Okay. All right. Well, he also, Neil also described that presence. He said there was a very heavy feeling in the house, almost like a smoky sensation. This is the first time I've ever heard it being really described that way, like a smoky sensation. What do you guys think about that?
Okay, actually, I think what he meant was not smoky, but a sort of musky, heavy sensation. Many times where people experience paranormal activity, they feel this increase in atmospheric pressure, which is why during investigations we do deploy barometers as well to check whether there's high fluctuations in atmospheric pressure. Because when pressure actually increases, it not just means that something might be happening, but it actually affects your physical well-being. It affects your blood pressure and affects your muscles and your joints as well, which, I was just reading up about it this afternoon. About grandma saying, before a storm, their joints start to ache. It's got nothing to do with temperature, but it's actually the pressure that's causing that pain in their joints. So that's why I said his story is really very intriguing, because it spans out almost every single thing that we experience during a paranormal investigation.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much, both to Eugene and to E.T. We've been getting a lot of comments as well. We want to say hello to everybody who joined us during the last 10 or 15 minutes or so. Tonight, of course, we were featuring a confession by Nil, who, when moving into a brand new apartment, encountered something that I guess we can only describe as a poltergeist type of experience. Is that an accurate depiction or description?
Actually, I wouldn't think it's so much of a poltergeist, because poltergeist usually has got movement. So there will be attacks. You will see physical bruises. You will see things moving.
I'll just call it a haunting.
I'll call it more as a haunting. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And of course, he was sharing the details with us. We've been spending the last 15 minutes or so weighing in on all the different details of his story. Okay. And if you think that, if you want to weigh in on this as well, tell us exactly what you think. I know there are some comments that have come in. Some of our viewers have also had similar experiences as well. Eugene, did anything in the comment section kind of pop out?
Yeah, there's a few good ones, but there's one by a Grace Suarez I would like to read. He says, I have a couple of personal supernatural stories. When I was 13, I used to not be afraid of staying in the living room after 10 p.m. because everybody would be in their room. I was doing my homework and etc. In the corner of my eye, I could see someone standing in front of the television. And as a kid back then, I would get distracted quite easily. And out of curiosity, I decided to turn. It was a spirit that duplicated my mom. Exactly the same. She had no expression. She wasn't looking at me. She was wearing the same PJs, but she wasn't my mom. How I know is because she was in the room watching TV, and if she was there in front of the TV, she would have walked past me. After that night, I've never stayed out in the living room after everybody went into their room. I used to have nightmares of demons, and one day I decided to tell my mom about it. She decided to change the position of the bed, and it wasn't that far apart between the wardrobe and the bed. So the first night of the change, I've heard something heavy drop in my wardrobe, but deep down, I know there was nothing heavy that could lead to such a loud impact.
Okay. All right. Well, we've got E.T. with us, and I'm going to see how much of E.T. I feel I can channel, okay? How well I know my friend E.T., okay? E.T., do you think this is, number one, position of the bed, feng shui issues, which could result in EMF, right? Could this be the power of suggestion? Could this also be, possible doppelganger also be the result of a tired mind, someone who has not had enough sleep? And hence, when you see things in certain lightings, it could be a broom that ends up somehow looking like a person. Which of these, or is there another option you're going to pick?
It's probably a bit of all. It's probably here and there. I mean, it's really hard to determine, right? Unless you're there with your gadgets. Okay, so I mean, just to let the listeners know, generally in a paranormal investigation, what we do is we set up various gadgets to test EMF, temperature changes, atmospheric changes. The reason why we do that is to rule out stuff. So I'm also hoping that certain things do not turn out. So then we can probably say it's a hantu, which then Eugene Tay will be really happy with. Yeah, so
Must be
that's
the
the reason.
hantu.
Yeah. So sometimes with stories, it's very hard to ascertain certain things until we actually go to the place and see the place, because then that makes a huge difference. I feel lighting, whether shadows cast at certain time, whether there's a lot of electrical cables running around, because these things make a difference, and it's easier for us to come to a conclusion.
Okay. All right. Well, I didn't actually get anything out of that. I was still waiting for like the one thing, right? But yes, a combination of many things, which at the end of the day is really what it is. You know what I mean? Sometimes it may not be the answer you're looking for, but it's what we're working with, whatever information that is actually available, which is why, once again, we do want to just stress, we give Eugene, or rather we give ET a lot of flack about this, but at the end of the day, it's not that he's cynical, it's just that, he wants to give you the best possible deduction based on the information that has been presented to him. So if you want him to give you a better deduction, then you just got to give him more information so he can rule out all the other alternatives. Zach says, I see the way Tim holds his glass makes me more worried than seeing the hantu. Why? What's wrong, Zach?
You may not
how is
know,
the way that
but
I hold my glass?
people are saying that you look extremely red on camera. They're not sure if you can finish through the whole show today.
Yeah, actually, the
EMF.
Exactly, right? Exactly. You can blame it on ET. Usually, right, I don't have to down this many drinks because Eugene does not mention EMF as does not mention EMF as many times as ET does.
Never mind. Next time Eugene mention hantu, you drink. ET mention EMF, you drink.
Okay. All right. So we have been talking, of course, about Neil and how he went to see a spiritual practitioner, a Hindu priest, actually, who gave him a cream. And so we were kind of interested about all this. I mean, what is the whole process when you go to a spiritual practitioner, to a temple to see a priest? What happens? I mean, in this particular case, he said he was given a cream. There was something about filling a bottle with not mineral water, with tap water from his house before doing a bit of a blessing. And fortunately, thanks to his years in the field, Eugene actually had some contacts who could, give us a little bit of a better idea of what goes on this end, right?
Yeah. So when I heard a story, the first thing I wanted to do was to contact close friend of mine, and also a spiritual practitioner and an Indian spiritual practitioner, about what is this cream about and what's this water. I have some idea what it can do, but to hear it from an expert, I think that makes a lot more sense. So I contacted him. I let him hear Neil's clip, and I said, Murali, tell me what you think about this and give me your honest opinion. Tell me what this cream is about. And this is what he has to say.
Upon hearing the confession statement, it's quite a norm thing that do happen to many people in Singapore, especially when they are moving into a new space, a new house. The reason why is because we have to understand this. During the war that has happened in Singapore, there were many deaths, and many parts of Singapore were used as burial grounds, and many not sent off properly. So they have started to linger around as wandering spirits because there were no proper rituals for them to cross over. Most of them have died brutally. So in olden days, usually when builders and construction is going to take place, they usually do a respect before they do any construction, so that if there's any negative energies around or any wandering spirits, to make sure that they do not cause any disturbance. But I'm not so sure if it's still being in practice. So when you are entering into a new space in the Hindu culture, there's always a signs of consecrating the place in accordance to our energy, because we will never know what type of energy or what type of beings, wandering spirits or demons, may be wandering around, because these things do not have a fixed space. So the best method is, when you are entering into a new space, it's always good to do some type of rituals, ceremonies to consecrate the energies around the house, so that these beings will not cross into our path and we will not cross into their path. triggering their anger and unhappiness. That is why these beings start to take revenge, and they will create a lot of problem for us. And understanding about the cream given by a Hindu priest, maybe it's a mixture of herbs gel up together as a cream that you apply around the house to act as a boundary. You draw a boundary line that prevents negative energy to cross. So usually in spiritual practices, what spiritual masters usually have, like a mixture of herbal powders, chanted items, talisman that are usually used to hang at the doorways, the windows, and the kitchen. So these are measures to create a spiritual boundary to prevent negative energies from entering into the home. Even as individuals, we will go out to many places and we do not know what do we attract. So the moment when we come home, when we cross into the home with the talisman hanging there, it acts as a boundaries and cuts off such negative items out of the house. And also going into a new home is always best to create positive energy when you are going to move into your house. 5 rituals, one that I would strongly recommend, or any particular faith of religion of group chanting, the Qurans, they will come in group to do a reading from the mosque. Our Christian family, the pastors, they usually will come and sprinkle around the holy water and reading over the Bible. So there are such practices in the community, in their different religious practices. So this is the advice that I can give to. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much to Murali. I mean, we know a little bit more about what goes on, not just with the creams and with the talismans, but of course, when it comes to drawing boundaries with the spirits as well, if we are to share a similar space with them as well. Boys, do we have anything to add to that?
Well, E.T., what do you think?
I find it very interesting because when you interviewed Murali, the cream doesn't, I mean, from his, I don't know, from his tonality and the way he spoke, the cream doesn't seem to be a normal item that's being issued to someone experiencing haunting, because he said he thinks it's a mixture of herbs. So it's not something that is normal. So I'm just curious where this guy got the cream from and why I mean, not playing down anyone or anything, but I'm just finding it weird how a simple thing like paint can override a so-called spiritual or some cleansing
boundary
of that cream. I mean, you place the cream around, everything stopped, and just by a normal coat of paint, it just destroyed that spiritual thing. I mean, to me that just doesn't sound right, I just can't come to I don't know.
Well, it sounds like some strong ass paint, and if I were like the paint company, I would totally use that as my marketing, right? I have
an explanation for that though, but it's nothing to do with science. I just want to share what the cream is for. So I've not seen a cream being given out like that in a tube, but I've seen paste. And why they use paste is they would put some ingredient inside, and especially for this was from the ustad, not the ustad, he's the imam. No, one is the Malay guy, but he deals with religious practices, but not the bomo, the white one. So he gave me this paste where I'm supposed to put around the room, and the reason why it's paste and not just water, because it stays there a little bit more than just water. But the ingredient inside tend to form a force field. So now, one of the things that we need to understand is things that we see in real life, things that we find, it will evaporate, the paint is super strong. To the spirit world, this is a symbolic act. And the essence that you paste and you put on, combined with a ritual, tends to have a different effect, a ripple effect into the spirit world. So even though we may not think too much about it, but when we paint over, what it does is it covers or it removes or it breaks the energy that creates the bond between their world and our world.
Actually, sometimes I view it the other way, as a placebo effect, that whenever someone is in trouble, you give them something and say this is going to help you, you just focus on this. So the guy really believes in it so much it works. I mean, that's just my very cynical view, lah. That, you know,
Well,
how
if that was the case, then when he told her, "Don't worry, you're just having a nightmare," she wouldn't have had to deal with anything after that, right?
but then
If
she's
only the
always
power of suggestion was that strong.
not so much the power of suggestion, but I'm just saying that the cream, when you're given a cream from someone you really believe in, the spiritual guy, and you put it around, it tends to put you at ease. So your mind doesn't go wandering as much, and it makes you a bit calmer. It's probably just a small part to play, but I'm just saying that it might be a placebo effect.
Okay. Well, sometimes placebos work, sometimes they don't. In fact, case in point, Eugene, who a few episodes ago we talked about this special love amulet he carried in the pocket, right? And then he thought, "Oh wow, I am going to be the man, the player. Ladies are going to come dropping into my lap," and it did not work in the bar.
Can I play it, is it?
It was worse than when I don't have it.
All right. Well, of course, if you have any more comments or opinions on a feature story that we've been discussing tonight, feel free to drop it into our comment list right now. We'll try and run through them. I mean, understandably, it's going to take us a little bit of time because tonight we have a lot more views, a lot more comments. Thank you very much for this. And if you just joined us, of course, please help us share the stream. Share the stream. See, I drink so much, I can't even speak properly. Share the stream, okay? And we have seen a few people saying that, "Oh, this reminds me of a story that happened to me," or "It happened to somebody else." So I also had an issue that happened to my home. Don't just leave it like that, lah. Like that is what we would call cocktease. Tell us the whole story. Send it to us on Facebook. Send it to us on our main website, supernaturalconfessions.com. And if you're willing, over the week, of course, we will do a Skype call and we can feature you in our next episode. Okay, but if we can, go ahead.
Sorry, I need to reply something that Daryl has asked. So I don't want to keep him waiting. And he's asking, this at the start of this, we mentioned that it's a demon, right? But then again, we didn't really address that at all. And Murali did mention,
the demon is what he said, what Neil said, the priest actually told him.
So what do we think, Daryl? So my reply would be, I personally don't think it's a demon, because when demons do attack a family, or when they make their presence known, it's usually not this peaceful. The smoky sense, the smell that they have, I would say that would be more towards the sulfur side, or maybe something burning or very rotten. But from Neil's experience, he's probably dealing with a very ancient entity there, a very powerful spirit. It may feel so strong that it's almost demonic-like, but generally I would feel it's not on the higher end or the scale of demonic disturbance that followed them throughout their houses. So yeah, that's my take on that.
Okay, what about you, E.T.? What do you think? I mean, if this was an entity, what kind of entity do you think it was? A demon?
It's really hard to ascertain because I honestly don't think it's any of those. I mean, if there was a demon, it was a poltergeist, you definitely would trigger off the dog and the kid. So, which is why I still am.
Oh, no. At the point, they didn't have a kid at that point.
Oh, okay.
Even not in that house. Yeah, just the dog.
There's just a dog, right? I mean, even a dog is being really, really sensitive to all this paranormal stuff. So I really just think it's probably prepare your glasses. It's probably an EMF, high fluctuation of electrical lines and stuff like that, to be honest, because it doesn't constitute to a poltergeist because you don't see bruises, physical markings, things getting smashed. The things that occurred, power trip, TV being switched off, probably some EMF causing it. She having the sensation of being pressed down is probably sleep paralysis. The dreams, though, the one I can't really explain how they have similar dreams, except they probably shared the dreams and then, that power of suggestion and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't think it's a demon, honestly.
Okay.
So that's at least one thing we can agree on.
Okay. All right. I'm just loving the messages that are coming through as well. I think some of our fans are listening or watching for the wrong reasons. Ling Ling says, I let him keep talking. I'm enjoying this too much. I need to see how drunk Timo gets.
And I just learned that Shermin likes it longer the better.
Challenge accepted. All right, so let's move on to our next confession. Of course, we can revisit if more information comes through. Once again, if you've had your own personal experiences, reach out to us as well. I think you've gotten to know the three of us a little bit better. Of course, during the course of this particular podcast, I like to ask the questions. ET always tries to look for how maybe it's not the Hantu, probably not the Hantu. And when it comes to Eugene, what is it you always like to say?
It must be the Hantu.
Always, right? When I was talking to Neil, who gave us that confession, and I asked him, hey, how did you get to know about supernatural confessions? He said, oh, I follow you guys on podcasts. And I said, were there any particular stories that popped out? He said, actually, I've been very interested to find out what happened with that investigation that Eugene did over in Tampines. And I guess he's been following our podcast so religiously, he remembers it. I don't even remember that story, right? So I was kind of hoping that tonight, especially since we have ET here, that Eugene, you could kind of recap that investigation. You know the one he's talking about, right?
Yeah, this is the one that happened in Tampines, and it's also
With
the one where
Catholic family?
Catholic family.
Okay.
I got a call at because it's already 11:35. I don't want to drag this too long because this story can get kind of lengthy. Maybe we can cover it next week in detail.
Okay.
But I will not leave you guys hanging in suspense, especially Neil, who wants to hear how it ended.
Yep.
This was for those of you who have not heard about this before, it's about a Catholic family that I had to go down and investigate their home a few days after Christmas. I got a call around 3 a.m. from a colleague of mine, and he says, can you please go down to my cousin's house? It's just near your place. They really need help. And even if you can't do anything, just you being there and giving them answers would help. And I was like, okay, you know what? It sounds sincere. It sounds serious. Let's go down. So when I went to the house is it faces a very huge jungle area. And when I went to the house, I felt it was extremely clean. I didn't feel anything wrong with the place. But then again, because I'm not as sensitive as some of our viewers who can see things and feel things, I generally can't. So when I went in, I see a Christmas tree. I see all the Catholic altars all around. I see a well-dressed family and a clean home. So immediately there's nothing, no alarm bells ringing at all. It's a few days after Christmas. The Christmas tree is still there. So I walked in and I said hi, I introduced myself. I said, your cousin invited me here. How can I help? The mother was very nice. She says, thank you for coming so late. I'm so paiseh to ask you to come down. But I think if you could I heard you do ghost hunting. Is it ghost hunting? I said, no, I don't do ghost hunting. But do you have a paranormal problem? He says, yeah, I think my house, it might be haunted. And the husband was very angry. The husband had his arm folded. He was looking all pissed off. He's like, don't talk rubbish lah. Don't talk rubbish lah. If you want to go, just go lah. Don't ask people come here and make it their problem. All right. There was two children. Both of them are pretty young in their teens. So I walked into the house and, just totally feeling comfortable, totally not thinking any supernatural thoughts. I stand in the middle of the room and I said, well, if there's any entity here, could you please show yourself, make yourself known? And at that point in time, the Mother Mary statue from the altar toppled, crashed down. 3 a.m., it was silent in the room. That crash just punctuated whatever I had to say. Everyone looked down. Everyone looked at me. I had to pretend that I was not fazed. Okay? And at that point in time, I was still trying to tell myself, maybe it's the wind. And I'll be
you're not supposed to say that. That's what ET is supposed to say. Now you just cost him one possible.
Must be the EMF.
But to be very honest I'm still a human being, right? When I see ghosts or I go to a haunted place, I will get scared, right? Maybe not as scared as most people are, but when you invite a ghost out and then Mother Mary topples off the altar, what the fuck am I dealing with here, right? Maybe I might have bitten off more than I can chew. So I try to tell myself it's the wind to sort of calm myself down because they are afraid. The last thing that I can do is start to run out screaming. That's not cool. Yeah. So I said, okay, Supernatural Investigation 101. You must always try to challenge the entity to replicate what has been done, right? So when you can replicate something that is very unnatural, it's very hard to explain with science. So I took a step back, I took a deep breath, and I said, if that was you, do it again. And at this point in time, the rosary beads burst and all the beads just drop on the floor. Tick, 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 tick. How do you explain that? What, wind blew it? Oh my God. At that point in time, my hair stood up, my balls shrunk. I was in the middle of a living room calling out an entity who responded without much hesitation. I had no amulet on me. I had nothing on me. I was naked like the day I was born in a spiritual sense. I look at the family. They all turn around. They got their luggage. They fuck out of the house. And they said, here's the key. No, they already met me for like 15 minutes. Here's the key. You can stay here tonight. We are going to stay at a hotel.
Okay.
And they left.
What did you
do? I was in the house, right? And I had to try to put fear out of my mind, and I had to be as rational as possible in a spiritual way, not irrational in the ET way where I try to use science to debunk. I try to understand what is this haunting about and why it happens that way. So before they left, I obviously asked some questions. I tried to do a lot of digging, talk to the husband, first of all, because he seems so angry all the time. Like maybe he's the one, he's the magnet to this thing. It turns out that in this house, they've been living there for about 27 years. So it's not a new apartment where you move into a haunted house. It's not that at all.
Yeah.
Right? And the mother's a housewife, homemaker. She's not about to lightly bring anything back unless maybe she had a fight with the Sheng Xiong auntie. Then the Sheng Xiong auntie, because she felt so slighted, she went to a Bomo to put a curse on her. Again, not a very strong motivation to put such a very strong entity in the family. And then there's 2 teenage kids. I'm like, okay, if there's any suspect at all, I would think it's probably the husband.
The kids. Oh no, you thought it was the husband. Okay.
First of all, I thought it was the husband, because the eldest son is in army back then, and he's in Tekong. Tekong spirits don't come out of Tekong; it's all anchored in Tekong, so it's not him. And so I went to the house. I tried to be calm by telling.
Wait, hang on. Is that true though? Like Tekong spirits are anchored to Tekong, and they will never follow you on the ferry back to Singapore?
No. So any of you viewers out there who agrees with this, or you know something about Tekong spirits, do you agree that Tekong spirits are anchored in Tekong and they don't leave Tekong? Just leave your comments there as well. Let me know what you think. Yes, no, or you have heard of some stories that the spirits actually follow the guy out of Tekong. We want to hear about that.
Alvin de Cruz, maybe you can put up a post, a poll, and it'd be quite interesting to see whether or not what our Supernatural Confession fans actually think about ghosts coming up from Tekong.
So I was in the room. I said, if this spirit only came about a few days ago, it is not from this place. If it's not anchored in this house, it must be something that was brought back. And if it's something that was brought back, could someone have stepped or something? Because we are looking at a very, very A-class active entity here that responds and can move religious artifacts. We are not talking about poltergeist or hantus or ghosts here. This is something beyond that. So if the entity is that strong, it must be pushed and targeted. It's not a random, you pee by the tree, the ghost got angry and follow you back shit. Or I picked up a gold coin. Maybe that might work. But this sounds very directed. And I felt safer knowing that, as ironic as that may sound, knowing that how powerful this entity was made me feel safer, because I then can rationalize with myself that this demon or this entity is not out to harm me. He has a target.
So in other words, right, you found security in the fact that it was after somebody else.
Yes.
Nice.
So I took out all my EVP, all my voice gadgets and EMF meter, and it was a very active, very interesting investigation, because it was a very clear yes no on my EMF meter. There was EVP recorded, and I found out, the long story short, that this entity wants the life of one of the people living in that house. And so I said, why? He said, it was owed something to me. Something was owed to me. So straight away I go, okay, this sounds very clear cut, open and shut case. Somebody has fucked up in the family. You go and say sorry, you do some blessings, it's fine, right? Usually. So the next day I make some calls. So that night as well, I said, when I was talking to them, I felt that there are many different voices trying to speak at the same time. So I said, how many of you are in the house tonight? How many of you are here? no reply, right? No reply. It was about 5 a.m. So for those of you who have done investigation before, you understand that investigation is not, it's not like how it is in Ghost Adventures. In a half an hour segment, 10 different things happen. This is more like me sitting there for 1 hour. I get 5 answers out of what I'm asking. So by the time it hit 5 a.m., 6 a.m., the spirit no longer want to talk to me. I believe it was still there because it's not the type that would just fade away with sunshine. But it just didn't want to talk to me anymore. So I called my friends who...
Wow, that doesn't speak well of your conversational skills, bro. Even the Hantu don't want to talk to you already.
This guy keep asking me the same shit over and over again. So that morning I called that night itself, I called my friend who's into the spiritual arts. I said, bro, can you come down in the morning, first thing in the morning, when you wake up, when you see this message, come down, I need you. So in the morning, about 6 a.m., I went out the house to have a smoke. I saw the shoe racks, right? They were all messed up in front because the family was in a hurry to rush out, was all neatly placed, and 9 pairs was neatly placed together. I was like, unless a neighbor between the time of 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. came by to arrange a slipper, I don't think I think this is something that is unexplainable. And remember, I asked how many spirits there were, and it did not answer me. I counted 9. I suspected 9. So the next day, the priest came down and everything. Tried to. Oh, so before my friend came down, a priest came down. A Catholic priest came down. The family has invited the Catholic priest down to sing. Is it hymns or to do? It's not the Bible study group. That's more the Christian one. This is the Catholic one where they all come down and pray together. So they tried to bless the place, and I was standing at the side. Obviously, I didn't want to interrupt. I was there, and the husband was also there. The father was there with me, and we were looking into the living room. But on the right side was where the kitchen is, and we both, as they were praying, we both smell gas, like the gas was turned on. I looked at him. He looked at me. He walked into the kitchen. And I saw him turning all the gas stove off. Then he looked at me as he walked out. I looked at him like the whole, what was that about, right? He said, it's nothing. Then later on, after you have all left, I said, did the gas turn on by itself and you turn it off? He said, maybe I forgot. I said, it sounded like you forgot to turn off all 3 and you're all at full blast. You know, like how do you explain that? Then he tried to say, oh, someone's playing a fool. Someone's playing a fool. I said, this guy, when you are scared and you are a non-believer, you can pull out all the excuses in your world just to try to answer it away. So I started interviewing people. Like, after the priest left, I talked to them a bit more. Then my friend came. He says, okay, there are spirits here. We'll try to chase them away. And he went around and he did a proper ritual, like great threads, throw rice, with a Tibetan knife to just, anchor the authority in place to say that this place is protected by a spiritual benevolent entity. Any evil spirit, fuck off, right? He left. Next thing happened, the spirits all came back again. So when he comes, spirit goes. When he leaves, spirit comes back. So we say, this is not right. This usually, he says, when I cast this kind of spell, it will chase away any spirit. This spirit, I cannot kill, I cannot destroy, I cannot chase because it's owed a blood debt. It's owed a blood debt. My spell does not work on... Because even in the spirit world, there are laws. There are rules to follow. If a spirit is owed a blood debt, it will claim its blood debt. If you use religion against him, I'm not talking about Christianity in this case, but like say any other direct ritualistic religion, usually they have like an underworld deity or a heavenly deity, and this deity will come down and say, look, we do not give you the mandate to clear the spirit. Whoever the living owes it, it has got to settle it first. That's what a blood debt is. So there's a blood debt in the house, which means almost certainly a life would be claimed. And it has already showed you, I can topple your Mother Mary, I can burst your prayer beads.
Rosary beads, yeah.
Rosary beads, right? I can even turn on the gas. I'm not fucking around already. So obviously the family is very scared. And the mother's like, please, please, can you help? By then, the father has really, when we brought this up already, right? He's like a bit defeated already. Like, only so much you can deny that the supernatural exists. And that's where I started talking to everybody one by one. I said, I need to talk to you guys. You all need to be very honest with me. Who do you owe and who do you offend? That's the two questions I need, right? You don't have to tell this to your family. If you can tell me, I can at least find the source. I can go and talk to the human source who has cast a spell on you and samsiong.
Okay, this sounds like a Cluedo moment, okay? Before Eugene actually tells us who done it. Alvin, if you would be so kind as to put up a poll, who do you think was responsible for this blood debt of this entity here in this home in Tampines? Do you think it was the mother? Do you think it was the father? Or do you think it was one of the children? We'll give our Supernatural Confessions viewers a little bit of time to see whether or not they can make the right guess, okay? But in the meantime, if you have just joined us, you're a bit late to the party. We kind of started more than 1.5 hours ago, which means I lost my bet in thinking, oh yeah, it was going to be like less than 1.5 hours, okay? We have been talking a lot about what has happened in this investigation that Eugene was called into at Tampines, all right? A couple of things happened. Mother Mary statue fell down, and yet Eugene still felt the need to have to test the spirit even more, okay? And then rosary beads broke as well. I'm looking at E.T. right now, and I'm just kind of wondering, what will he say? What are the rational explanations or alternative reasonings that he could come up with for incidents like this? E.T., if you would.
It must be the hantu.
Wow!
Really? So even
Okay,
E.T. believes it's probably the hantu then.
It's really, I mean, okay. So number one thing is I wasn't there. But one investigation we did in Pulau Ubin at the German Girl Temple, which is set up porcelain dolls to try and invoke spirits to take possession of those dolls. So what was interesting was it was a windless night. And after investigation, it was quite uneventful. So I was going to pick up the porcelain doll to keep and then just leave for the night. So bent down to pick it up. It's just about to touch the porcelain doll. It suddenly went back violently and smashed onto the ground. Like someone kicked it, but there was no one around. And I wasn't drunk. So it probably was something that we can't explain. So the same thing with Rosary and Mother Mary's statue. It probably was the work of what we term as a poltergeist.
Wow. See, Eugene, I knew. After enough drinks, even E.T. will say it must be the hantu, right? Okay, so what is the result of the quiz so far? We've asked, who do you think was responsible for the blood debt mentioned in Eugene Tay's story? Is it the mother? Is it the father? Or is it one of the children? Here's where we do the big reveal. Eugene, after your interview with all three of them, who was the one responsible for this spirit entering their house?
Let me give you the background of these people first. Then I let you as I reveal them. So the father is a businessman, and he does work in a shipping line. The mother is a housewife. One of the children is in Tekong, and the youngest one is only about 15. And when I started speaking to them one by one, and I kept the youngest son last, and when I spoke to him this time around, I realized something different that I didn't notice on the first time I met him. The first time I met him, he was in a long sleeve t-shirt because they were all running out of the house, right? The second time I met him, he was always like in a jacket. He's always like in one corner holding himself. But I didn't think much about that because, young guy, scared, naturally, that's how they would react. But this time when I started speaking to them one by one, I found out that, hey, he's wearing a t-shirt now and he has tattoos of 9 names on his arm. So I asked, what's that about? And he says, oh, this is my friends. I said, yeah, I got friends too. I don't tattoo their name. If it's a tattoo of 9 girls' name, I can kind of get it. You're trying to keep scores. But guys and girls, I'm like, what's going on? He says,
I'm a little offended, E.T. I mean, I would like to think that we're brothers enough that Eugene would consider tattooing our names on his arm.
He does. You never see your name.
You tattoo a dick on your thigh first, and I'll tattoo your name on my arm.
Hey, according to 2 podcast episodes ago, you said you would actually be willing to tattoo a giant dick on your arm, okay?
Okay, wait, let me get back to the story, right? So 9 pairs of slippers, 9 names on his arm. I said, okay, what happened to them? I kind of know the answer. I just wanted to hear it from him. Oh, they passed away. I said, dude, you're 15 years old. 9 friends passed away. How old are they? They're all teenagers as well. And the way they died is all through, it's like a Final Destination, car crash, speared through head, decapitated, fall down and die, you know? And I like, okay, I don't know if you know about this, but I'm guessing you're the last one left. And that was me calling a bluff. Because in investigation, you kind of have to put assumptions and then you call a bluff to get them to trip. And he says yes. So he didn't deny it. I guess there was not that they were part of a ritual and he's the last one left. I said, then I started noticing about him a bit more carefully. He has a gold Rolex watch. The father doesn't have a Rolex watch because business wasn't so good. And this guy was decked in head to toe with blings.
Branded stuff, right?
Yeah. I said, where you get the money from? Obviously, it's not from your dad. Your dad telling me his business is bad. He said, oh, I just got lucky. Dude, you don't get lucky that often and not pay a price. I said,
at the age of 15?
Yeah. So I said, and this was me calling a bluff, right? I said, you made a pact with somebody. All 10 of you made a pact with somebody. You forgot what it is. Nobody bothered paying back. And now you're all dying. I said, there's a reason why you're hiding from me all along, because you're always at the corner of my eyes and not being in my line of sight, because you know where you fuck up and you're trying to hide, but you don't want to let your parents know. I promise you I won't tell your parents because this is just between you and me, but you need to tell me and be honest so that I can help you. So he continually denied, but over the period of a couple of days when I started talking to him, he told me there was a Thai man. He started hanging out at Thai bars and buying drinks and dealing with Thai stuff. So I called my friend who's into Thai magic and everything, and without even coming to the house, he hears a story. He said, you go and check under his bed. You go check under his bed. Confirm got something. So I didn't check under his bed because I didn't go to the house anymore. I told him, whatever it is you're keeping under your bed, you go and fulfill your promise, and then you come back to me. I cannot do anything for you. Right? And so I think he did. And I give him some numbers to go and call and people to talk to. And the next thing I know, about 2-3 years later, I was invited to the house again for Chinese New Year gathering. And he was still alive. And all his blings are gone. Everything gone. And I look at him, I say, how? And he smiled at me. So I don't know what happened between the time I gave him that advice, but he must have gone to call my contact and got a last minute ramification. So his blood debt was probably turned into a promise that a vow that he has to make that would last for 9 years or more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm very proud of you, Eugene. I mean, who'd have thought you're quite the Sherlock Holmes of the supernatural, huh? You managed to come up with all those deductions, and I'm sure to some degree they were relatively accurate because, I mean, the ending of your story certainly indicates that, right? So, have you kind of followed up with this family ever since? This was how many years ago?
The last I met them, when was the year where Guns N' Roses came down to Singapore to play?
Too long ago.
2007. I think 2017.
About three or 4 years ago.
That was the last year I met them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Nil, who actually gave us the earlier confession, was asking what happened after that. Now, I guess you know. I guess from at least based on your last interaction with this family, everything kind of worked out. Yeah. Okay.
So I think what Nita and everyone was asking is for me to go back and ask the guy again. So what did you actually do? So they want to know what he did.
Yeah, and what did you do with your gold Rolex? E.T., do you have anything to add or to ask Eugene regarding this investigation that he did? E.T.? Well, I think we know who's been drinking.
No, it's a bit lag on my side.
Yeah, it happens when you drink too much. The reaction is quite slow.
That's why everybody's saying, look at Tim, his eyes, he looks intoxicated, he's drunk, but the marble one is the one all the way on the left.
I mean, it sounds very interesting. Poltergeist, some bad, and it was some Thai magic, right? And I always hear, I used to have a friend who practiced dabbles with the black Thai magic. So apparently it's one of the strongest black magic in the world. He's actually done talks and showed us various artifacts. It's really quite freakish, the things that they use. And I think to a certain extent, black magic does work, but I would think most of it is just the imagination of the mind. But there will be things that happen which till today I still can't explain.
All right, and that is the closest he will admit to it being the hunter, okay? Tonight is a milestone landmark moment for Supernatural Confessions, where even E.T., our resident debunker with the critical eye when it comes to supernatural investigations, does open himself out, makes himself look a little vulnerable to the possibility that, yes, sometimes they are ghosts and hunters that are responsible for the things that happen in our lives, okay? And with that said, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for keeping us company for tonight. It turned out to be a much longer episode than we thought it was going to be. I really had my heart out on it being ending at 11:30. But if anything, this is going to turn out to be one of our very, very long episodes. Yes, Eugene?
Yeah, but I hope you guys enjoy it and it's not just long and boring. So if you think that it's great, please leave us a comment because we always take your comment to heart and we want to do the best we can for you guys, right? And I think even someone's asking that we should do a theme on not just negative entity, but maybe benevolent spirits. So we're going to do that as well as one of the upcoming themes down the line.
Okay. In the meantime, though, thank you very much. Those of you who have just joined us, especially those who have joined us for the very, very first time, all the information that you need to know on Supernatural Confessions, once again, can be found where, Eugene?
On www.supernaturalconfessions.com. That's the best place and the first place you should go to leave us your story. I know most of you tonight have said that you have some photos, you have some stories. Don't leave us hanging. Don't be a cock tease. Everybody wants to hear your story. So just jump on to supernaturalconfessions.com. It's right at the top. You don't even have to scroll much. There's a form there that gets you to tell us your story. And if you don't want to be known, just say, leave my name out of it. Let me be anonymous. Okay? So I also want to let you guys know that whatever that you're hearing tonight, this is the live podcast show where we show you everything behind the scenes, getting red in the face, getting, technical problem, getting, locked out. But what you want to do is if you miss all this and you really want to hear our voices again down the line throughout the week, go down to our podcast. That's really Team's Pride and Joy. It's going to be a shortened, condensed version. There's the cliff notes, the best deal, the highlight reel. So that's on our podcast channel. You can whoa, that was loud. You can actually find our podcast on places like Spotify, Google Play Store, and also Apple Podcasts. Just search for Supernatural Confessions. We are there. Give us a like, give us a review if you can. Like Spotify, obviously you can't, but just tune in. And every single like that you give us really motivates us. As Tim has mentioned just now, we are doing this for the love of our heart, for you guys. We spend hours preparing for this show, and we don't ask for a cent. We just ask for you guys to, contribute to us and share this stream so that as many people as possible will get to hear about us and they can send us their story and then we can share that with you guys.
All right. So big thank you, of course, to E.T. for joining us tonight. How was the experience being with us for the last 2 hours, E.T.?
Almost emptied my bottle already.
Okay, time for us to go and enjoy another one. A couple of other people we want to say a big thank you to. Jerry for always putting together such awesome posts on our Facebook as well as our website. Speaking of our website, go there to get the details on the expedition. See, I'm not so drunk. I could say it. Expedition team that we are trying to put together. Members, Zach will get back to you with any inquiries that you may have regarding the position.
So
okay.
And also one more special thanks to Esther, who has been very helpful in pushing some of her friends and getting them to confess to us. She has one confession that's going to be coming up pretty soon. It's about a lady who works in the death care industry who does makeup for the dead. And she's going to tell us about how she knows when the client's going to come in next day because dun dun dun.
Jang, jang, jang.
Yeah.
All right. So just running through your messages, you guys have been very, very kind for tuning in tonight. Thank you, Eugene, for always being so supportive. Says, great show, so professional. Neitha says you should stream again at 3 a.m. Mia says, it feels like Tim is about to introduce a song, and I think I've got just the song. You know why I'm playing this song? This is like E.T.'s song, though. Yeah. Because the song Unbelievable, come on, say it together, is by which band?
EMF. EMF is going to rock you.
My name is Timo, along with E.T., and of course...
Well, my name is Eugene Tay, and you've been watching...
Supernatural Confessions.
Cheers.
Good night.
EMF.
Supernatural Confessions.